Hi YouTube, I'm Mike Dariano. Here's my keynote from the 2019 Going Deep Summit.
Welcome back. Session 3 of the morning is going to be awesome. When I was younger, I was told by my mom to be careful who you meet on the internet. Don't make friends on the internet. It's a dangerous place. Bad things can happen. And while I actually look out in this crowd and I see a few faces that started as friendships related to interacting in the digital world first, the next guest is actually the first real friend that I made purely through meeting on a digital platform. Mike interacted with a podcast episode that I did. We tweeted at each other a couple times, and we quickly realized that we both had an interest in finance and an appetite for devouring books. I also quickly learned that Mike is one hell of a writer. His blog, The Waiter's Pad, is basically an absolute must read every single time he puts something new up. I learn something every single time, and he has a particularly brilliant way of connecting a bunch of disparate characters or ideas together into a cohesive narrative. And that's something that I've enjoyed experiencing with all the things that he creates. And so much so that after the first summit, when I was thinking about doing this for a second time, the first person that I wanted to have on stage, the first person that I asked to be here at this event, we didn't have this venue figured out, we didn't have the Piper experience figured out, we didn't have anything figured out, but I knew that I needed to get Mike here because number one, I just appreciate him and I want him to share in this platform, but also because I knew that he could deliver a lot of insights and lessons for you guys. So it is my great privilege and honor to welcome Mike Dariano up to the stage.
Thanks, buddy. All right, thank you. And as a blogger, I am happy to be the least qualified to speak today. But I did want to start with a warning because there's a lot of stories here today. There's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of people that we know and we want to relate to. And between Aaron and between Tammy and between Joe, we get this entrepreneurship spirit. We get this entrepreneurship bug. We think, I am going to start something. I am going to be the one who has this great business where I work for myself. And a lot of times that's really good. That can be something that is really neat and an amazing experience, and it can change your life. But it's not for everybody. There's a lot of people who are business owners who spend all of their time on their business. And that means they don't spend time on other things. Like Joe talked about, there's 168 hours in a week, and you figure you have 40 of those hours for sleep, and that is a very hard upper bound limit on everything else that you're capable of doing in your life. And so not owning a business, just working for someone, that's fine, because there's all kinds of things that we pay other people to do for us. None of us flies a plane to get from here to there, right? Few of us do our own taxes. There's all kinds of things where we decide, you know what? I'm going to let someone else worry about that. And that's okay. If you have a boss, do you know what you're letting your boss do? Worry about all the extra stuff that you don't have to. So there's this vibrancy of entrepreneurship. And that's really good sometimes. But like if you're in a job right now and you're thinking, I kind of like my job, I like the people I work with, that's really good too. And I just wanted, before I started my talk today, to acknowledge that that's also okay. And part of the reason I'm here is, I think, because I have a unique point of view. See, I didn't realize I had this different point of view until I moved. I moved to Florida. When I committed to this, I lived in Ohio. And so I thought, oh yeah, I'll go from Ohio to Pittsburgh. This will be a nice trip. And then I moved to Florida, and then I thought, well, now I got to make a full weekend of this. And so I moved to Florida, and anytime you move, whether it's a job relocation or a changing of schools when you're younger, or going to college and living in a dorm or an apartment, you have to meet new people, right? So you meet these new people, and one question that often comes up is, so what do you do? What is your job? Where do you work? That question comes up over and over and over again. And I have two of the worst possible answers for what is it that you do. Often what I'll tell people is that I'm a stay-at-home dad, which I am. I do all the cooking in my house. I take care of my kids. I wake them up. I get them to school. I am a stay-at-home dad. That's where almost all of my time is spent, right? And you get the same response every time you tell someone you're a stay-at-home parent. Does anyone know what that is? It's the hardest job there is. And that is an excellent way to kill a conversation. Because no one ever really wants to talk about parenting, because sometimes parenting is the hardest job there is, and sometimes it's actually really easy. Because kids can be fun sometimes, but they can also be people who you love, but they say, I hate you, I wish you were never born. So sometimes I tell people I'm a stay-at-home parent. And sometimes I'll tell people, if I'm feeling like plucky, I'll tell people that I'm a blogger. And a lot of times people do not know what that is. They're like, oh, you make internet videos. And I say, no, I write things. And they say, oh, what do you write? And here we go. This ship is going down fast. I say that I write about modern economics and human psychology and business strategy. And that effectively shuts everything else down. So they're like, oh, what else do you do? What are your hobbies? But I think the fact that I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I think the fact that I'm a blogger means that I have an interesting point of view, that I have a different point of view. And different points of view, different ways of seeing a situation are often crucial to unlocking things. In fact, that's actually what we're doing here today. When we come here today and we listen to people that are up on this stage, we're getting another point of view to solve problems in our own lives. And we do this with ourselves all the time. If you've ever looked back in your life and thought, you know what? I was a real jerk. I was a horse's ass. I made a huge mistake. That's just a different point of view. You're a different person in the future looking back at the person you were in the past. So different points of view are really helpful with solving problems. One of my favorite groups of people that has a different point of view is what's called the FIRE movement. FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. These are people that have saved 50% or more of their take-home pay so that they can retire at 35 or 45 rather than 65 or 75. And really the FIRE movement is very simple. You have to make this much money and you have to spend this much money and you invest the difference. Okay? And they've got all these ideas, and because, blogging or Medium has become so popular, it's easy to share these ideas, so they'll go ahead and they'll share their stories. And they have a lot of helpful tips. And so even if you don't want to retire early, even if you don't want to invest 60% of your take-home pay and live on a portion of the rest, they have good ideas. And essentially what the people in the FIRE movement have found out is what we all know, the best things in life are free. It's way more fun to spend time with your neighbors at a potluck in someone's backyard than go out to a fancy restaurant that costs who knows how much money, right? It's way more fun to have kids play together at a playground than to take them somewhere or to go to, one of these trampoline parks where you have to spend this much money and then this much at the concession stand and so forth and so on. So the FIRE movement has found the best things in life for free. But how many people in the audience right now are part of this movement? How many people have decided, I save 90% of my income, I'm going to retire early? None of us. But we all know, we can all take their point of view, and we can take what they've learned, and we can incorporate those ideas into our own life. And I think that's the secret for all of the talks today. I think the secret to a good takeaway is what I call the chocolate chip technique, okay? So everything that I'm about to say I think is right, but some of it is definitely wrong. I just don't know which parts are wrong. That's for you guys to figure out, okay? So on the one hand, on the one end of the spectrum, you could view me up here, or anyone that comes up here today, as a prophet. And you can say, oh my gosh, I've been doing things wrong my whole life. I am going to fully adopt everything this person has told me as the correct view of the world. That's not going to happen. You could come to the other end of the spectrum, and you could say, Mike Dariano, who chose that URL? Mike Dariano is an idiot. He knows nothing of what he's talking about, and I'm not going to listen to anything that he has to say. And if you find yourself up here calling me an idiot, or if you find yourself over here thinking that everything someone up here says is totally correct, you need to challenge yourself and you need to ask why. Why do I think this person is correct? Why do I think this person is an idiot? Because it's only in asking why, it's only in challenging yourself are you going to be able to get to the root of the issue. Because you may think that, which end was the smart end? You may think that everything on the smart end is correct, but if you start asking why, you're going to be like, oh, no. It's not everything. It's these one or two things. He was over here telling me these stories. He was up on stage and he looked like an authority. You know, what's actually true is here, not here, here. All right, so right in the middle, we've got the chocolate chips. And we call this the chocolate chip technique, is because anytime you add chocolate chips to a cookie, you know what they do to the cookie? They make it better. You know, every cookie is better with chocolate chips. All right, so what you need to find is you need to find the chocolate chips in my talk. You need to find the chocolate chips in Tammy's talk. You need to find the chocolate chips in Joe's talk and all the talks for the rest of the day and fold one of those things into your life. If you walk out of here with one good idea, I think that would be a successful time. Because nobody should be completely changing your mind on how the world works, because we all have different points of view. We all have these different collectives of life experiences. I am a stay-at-home dad who also has a blog, and that's kind of a weird thing. So I'm definitely not right about everything, but I also don't think I'm wrong. One idea I have is that work is like a canoe. Okay? And I think work as a canoe is a really good metaphor, because if you think about it, the body of the canoe is like an office, right? The bench of the canoe is like your desk. The oar of the canoe is like the tools you use. It could be software, it could be spreadsheets, it could be computer technology, it could be physical tools like we're surrounded with today. All right, so the canoe is how all organizations start, and you just need one person to get in the canoe at first. You need one person who's going to say, I want to cross the lake. None of these other canoes that are full of people are doing it in quite the right way. I'm going to do this my own way. So you get the one person in the canoe, and they're paddling along, and this one person finds out very quickly that they could go farther and they could go faster if they had another person in the canoe. So you get one person, now you have two. You got someone in the front, someone in the back, and you're paddling. And you can't go like twice as far because you have the added weight. You don't have perfect coordination. So you go a little farther. So you get one person and now two people are in the canoe. And you can travel across the lake, you can travel up the river, wherever this metaphorical canoe is going. And then you get the idea, you know what? If we get a third person in this canoe, we'll really be in business. So you get the third person in the canoe, and the first person in the canoe was pretty good at paddling, pretty good at navigating. They knew like a little bit of everything. The second person also. This third person is just going to be there for paddling. This is going to be the muscle of the canoe. This is the person that's going to stream you right up the river. This is the person that's going to push you right across the lake. So you get your three people in the canoe, and we can see how organizations grow like this. We can see how we have the founder who's kind of the jack of all trades, the person who does a little bit of everything. We add the people in the canoe, and eventually we're going to have to get a canoe that is a slightly bigger size. We're going to have to get a bigger canoe. So, no problem, we'll get a bigger canoe. But now the trouble starts because we start adding more people. And people aren't always the best at the canoe. Sometimes you're going to get someone in the canoe who you're like, all right, you are going to document this process. You are going to take pictures. You are going to read the map. You're going to be in charge of food. And every once in a while, that documentarian, that chef, that navigator, you know what they're going to do? They're going to sometimes pick up a paddle. That's not why they're in the canoe. That's not why that person is in your boat. But they pick up a paddle anyways, because sometimes they need to chip in. Sometimes they think they can paddle. And you know what they're going to do? You're going to be full steam ahead. They're going to be paddling backwards. They're going to be side paddling. Have you ever been in a canoe where someone is splashing? And you look at them and you're like, you give them just a quick look first. And they keep splashing you and give them another look. And then you realize they are not splashing you on purpose. They just have no idea what the hell they're doing. So you're going to have one of those people in the canoe. And the reason that you're going to have one of those people in the canoe is that you have to hire people to do work. And the great thing about people is that they can take an idea and they can coordinate their friends and they can meet with others and they can put a plan into action, and we get something like this. And this is really cool. But the other part of people is that sometimes people make mistakes. People don't have training. People don't have the same experiences that we have. And these people who don't have a lot of training, who don't have a lot of experience, I have a name for these people. They're people who can do wonderful things, but they're just not quite there. Do you know what we call these people? We call them teenagers. Okay? Teenagers are wonderfully creative. They have so much potential, but they're still teenagers. Like, they only really have like 6 or 10 years of life experiences to draw on. And it's amazing the things that you can pay a teenager to do. You know, like for $10 an hour, you could have someone follow you around Pittsburgh. For $10 an hour, someone could walk your dogs. They could watch your house. They can drive a car. They can take you from places to places. Look around the next time you're out and about somewhere. Look at how many teenagers are employed. These are people who are really lacking in the set of life experiences that you have as an adult. Yet they are really capable of so much. They're capable of all of these amazing things because people are capable of all of these amazing things. And the reason we're capable, the reason that we can do so many things, that we can row in the canoe, is that we all sort of have a toolbox of skills. And you get your toolbox of skills through life experiences. Sometimes that's inadvertent. Sometimes it's events like this. Sometimes it's education. There's all kinds of things that you can do to build up your toolbox of life skills. And sometimes it seems like our toolboxes are expiring. Like we've got stuff in there that we don't use anymore, or we got stuff in there that's not important anymore. And we haven't added things to our toolbox. We haven't added things that allow us to get certain outcomes. And I think it's outcomes that a business or a person really focuses on. There's an old expression from a Harvard professor that says, people don't need quarter-inch drill bits. People need quarter-inch holes. And it's not even that. People need quarter-inch drill bits so they get quarter-inch holes so that they can hang an IKEA shelf that they're very proud of getting because IKEA shelves are modern, fashionable, and great deals so that they can put a picture of them on vacation because that brings them joy. And that's what people want. People want joy. People want outcomes. It's not where people start. It's not the thing that they even necessarily say they want. It's the outcome that's the destination. And that's why we hire people. That's why teenagers are good at jobs. That's why we do work. That's why we serve customers. Okay? And I think one example of the changing way we get to outcomes, one example of how technology has influenced work, has changed our careers, is in travel. And I was thinking about this because since I had to come from Florida to Pennsylvania, travel was on my mind. But this is true for everyone. If you're too young to remember, although there's not many people here that are too young, the way you used to travel is you had an atlas, and the atlas was approximately the size of my torso. It was at least this big. It wasn't very thick, but it was big, and you would jam it. You would try to hide it when you didn't need it. It went under the next seat of the passenger seat of your car, and this thing was folded over, and that's how you got from place to place. Right? That was the tool you used to get to the outcome, because for the outcome of travel, it has always been the same. How can I efficiently and safely get to where I'm going? And for a long time, the best tool we had for that outcome was the atlas that's as big as my torso, right? But then the 90s came along with the internet and MapQuest. And MapQuest was great. MapQuest was a wonderful improvement to the atlas, because it told you how far you had to drive. Because when you just had an atlas, when you were looking at an atlas to figure out where you were going, you're like, all right, I know I'm getting to this road here, Main Street, and before Main Street is Hickory, and before Hickory is Elm. So I need to look for Elm so that I know that Hickory is coming up, because then it's my turn on Main, right? But MapQuest came along, and MapQuest is like, hey, 3.2 miles. That's all you got to worry about. So you would reset your trip odometer to 3.2 miles, and then like right around like 3.1, you'd have to start looking for it, okay? So MapQuest came along, just a different tool to efficiently and safely get to your destination, right? After MapQuest, we got Google Maps. And Google Maps is even better than MapQuest, which was even better than your atlas, because all that does is you just put in where you're going, and it tells you turn left in 500 feet. Turn left in 200 feet. And not only is it that good, it tells you traffic patterns now. So anytime you find yourself like making some weird turn through a residential neighborhood when like you could have gone up to the main drag and then turned left across traffic, anytime you're doing that, like that's your map realizing, you know, that other way, there's way too many people up there. We're gonna take you this way where there's not many other people. And this same thing has been true for coming up here from Florida, where in the past I used to have to call someone and I would have to say, hey, I need a flight to Pittsburgh from Orlando Airport. And they would say, let me look at your options. And then you know what they would do? They wouldn't list. You know how when you search for an airline flight now, it'll say 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12:15, and you can choose one stop, direct, 2 stops. No, that's not what they used to do. What they used to do is they used to say, all right, we'll get you there on Wednesday. I was like, okay, I'm flying on Wednesday. What time? They didn't list all the options. That was actually the exact experience that the Expedia founders had. They called their travel liaison from Microsoft, and he said, I wanted to fly from X to Y, and they said, okay, Wednesday. And he's like, anything else? And he could hear her typing through the phone. He could hear the travel agent typing through the phone, and she's like, Wednesday. And so that's how Expedia got its start. And so now we have apps, right? Now I used an app to find parking at the airport. I used an app to book airline tickets. I used an app to get from the airport to the hotel. I used an app to find where this place was, to find a restaurant to eat at. So now we have apps. But it's all in service of the same set of outcomes, right? In travel, those outcomes are efficiency and safety, okay? And that same thing is happening to work, I think. The same thing is happening in the way that we do work, okay? We can see this in our communications at work, right? Before you had to master a copy machine and a fax machine, and then we moved on to DocuSign and Telegram and Slack channels. Rather than phone calls, we send messages now. We went from emails to texting, okay? So the same outcomes exist. It's the same things that we wanted to do. And the outcomes for work have always been the same. It's to serve customers and create sustainable profits. That's the point of any business. That's the point of any job, any career, is to serve customers and create sustainable profits. But the means to getting those outcomes have changed. And I think there's some things we can do about that. I think there's some ways, some mindsets we can have that'll help us adapt to those changes. The first, I think, is an embracing of technology. And at first I was really worried about technology. I remember building websites in 1999 and thinking the internet is going to be huge, right? And then the dot-com bubble crashed, and it's like, oh my gosh, that was stupid. Who is going to have food delivered to their house? Who is going to pay for something that just exists digitally? What a terrible idea. Well, that just shows you that I am definitely wrong about some things, right? But what I've learned, what I've realized, is that technology comes, and even though you see technology coming, even though you see technology changes, it's never too late. It is never too late when you see a change coming, when you see the actions that lead to the outcomes changing, it's never too late to get on board with that. Just last night I was listening to Steve Martin's book, Born Standing Up, which is a really good book about what kind of work it takes. Martin says that he was a comedian for 18 years. 10 years were spent figuring the whole process out. 4 years were spent refining his act, and 4 years were a complete blaze of glory as a stand-up comedian, right? And Martin says that in 1975 he saw the first episode of Saturday Night Live, and he thought, shit. They figured it out. They did it. He thought that barren beach of his kind of comedy was going to be wide open, and he saw SNL and he saw that they were there. But you know what happens? It's just like going to a beach. When you park at a parking lot and you get all your stuff to go to the beach and you're ready to walk down there and you look along the water and you're like, oh my gosh, it's packed. You see umbrellas, and you see coolers, and you see beach blankets, and there's children running around everywhere, and there's people wearing who knows what at the beach, right? But when you walk down to the beach, you realize like, oh, there's plenty of room down here. There's plenty of space for us. The first time I realized that this had happened to me was 2003. I didn't realize that this happened on the internet, but it was 2003 or 2004, and I read the book Moneyball. Moneyball is the story of the Oakland Athletics and their manager, Billy Beane. And what Billy Beane and his staff discovered at the Oakland Athletics was that you could afford to pay players less to get larger outcomes, right? So the outcome in baseball is to win baseball games. That's what the goal of the team and the manager is, to win games. And for a long time, the actions that led to winning games was paying players who hit home runs and pitchers who threw strikes. That was the set of actions that led to an outcome in baseball. And that was expensive, and it was expensive because everyone knew that, right? Anytime it's a conventional set of outcomes, people are paying for that. And so the price is going to be bid up. Anytime there's a market for anytime there's a market for one thing, anytime there's two bidders for one thing, the price goes up, right? And that's what Billy Beane realized. He's like, you know what? Home runs and strikeouts are expensive to pay for. They do lead to wins, but they're expensive. What else can we buy? And Billy Beane found out that you can pay for something called on-base percentage. And you could pay pitchers who threw pitches that led to ground balls. And those things were cheap. And you know what? Those actions also led to that outcome. Those actions also led to wins. So I read this book in 2003, and just like Steve Martin in 1975, I thought, shit. Not only that, 2 years later, I was working for a minor league baseball team. There was no one in a better position than I was. But I had read this book in 2003 and 2004, written by a best-selling author that was a New York Times bestseller, and I was in baseball, and I thought it was here. It was all here. This technology was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. I mean, if someone writes a book about it, everyone knows about it. Like, there's no secrets anymore. This is very clear what to do. It took 15 years for sabermetrics to find a foothold and an office in sports across all of the major sports leagues in North America. Baseball was first, and then basketball. Now hockey and football have all found sabermetrics advantages. It took 15 years for all of that to happen. And I thought just because I read about the technology, just because I read about the techniques, just because I read about the actions that led to that desirable outcome, I thought that was it. I thought, oh, you know what? It's here. I'll move on to something else, right? So the first piece of advice, the first idea I have is that it's never all here, and that even if it's technology, if it's something you feel like you don't understand, if you work on it, you can figure it out. And we've been doing this with our technology for the longest time. I mean, we all, like, everyone can type on one of these now with just your thumbs and just go do-do-do-do, right? That's not a problem anymore. We learn how to do that. Not only that, we learn how to use autocorrect. We learn how all of these apps work. I mean, I've got Snapchat on my phone, okay? If anyone can learn how to use technology, I send my daughter snaps, okay? So whenever you find yourself facing a technology hurdle, you got this. You can do it. So that's one tool I think we need in our toolbox. That's one way that we can adapt to the changing landscape of jobs. Another is, I think, to be curious. And curiosity is not easy, because curiosity is actually two parts. There's two parts to curiosity. This is not my idea. This is an idea Brian Grazer writes about in his book, A Curious Mind. Grazer is a famous film producer. He's made movies like Apollo 13 and others. And what Grazer writes is that you have to be curious enough to notice something, and then you have to follow up. So you have to notice a glitch in the matrix, and then you have to do something about it. You have to have a that's interesting moment, and then you have to do something about it. You have to find the moment in your life when you're paused or when you're stuck on something, and then you have to do something about it. And that's the secret to curiosity. It's those two steps. It's from one thing to the next. And anytime you find yourself wondering, why are things done this way and not that way? Anytime you find yourself wondering, did I just really see that? Anytime you find yourself paused and don't know where to click on a website or don't know where to go next, that's a problem to solve. That's a secret that you can discover. One of my favorite stories of curiosity is by this guy named Peter Rahal. Does anyone know who Peter Rahal is? Good, this will be like a Paul Harvey moment. Peter Rahal was stuck. He was not a good student in high school. He was not a good student through his first couple years of college. And then Peter Rahal learned something. Like in his second year of college, Peter Rahal was dyslexic. So he's gone through like 6 years of relatively organized school, only now to find out that he's dyslexic. But Peter Rahal graduates from college, and he finds out that a lot of introductory jobs, a lot of jobs when you're just starting off, those jobs are very linear jobs. Do this, then this, then this, and this. And you know what kind of jobs are hard for a dyslexic? Linear jobs. So Rahal is really stuck. He doesn't know what he's going to do. The only thing that he really enjoys doing, the only thing that he's really doing on a consistent basis and that makes him happy is working out. So Peter Rahal is part of a CrossFit gym, and he's walking out of his CrossFit gym one day, and he's like, they're selling t-shirts. That's interesting. Oh, they're selling water too. That's interesting. So Peter Rahal walks up and he's like, I need something to eat. You know, I just worked out. And they're like, oh, we don't have anything. He's like, that's interesting. So Rahal goes home and he's doing this thing you're probably sick of hearing about called the Paleo Diet or the Whole30 diet. That's how Peter Rahal is eating. And he goes home. He opens up the cupboard at his mom and dad's house, and he takes out the Cuisinart, and he puts the Cuisinart down on the counter. And Rahal knows what he can eat. He can eat dates, and go dates. He can eat figs, and go figs. He can eat nuts and stuff, and go nuts and stuff. He can eat cocoa powder, not the Hershey's kind. This is the stuff you find in the baking aisle with no sugar added. And if you've ever tasted it, like as a kid, you're like, that's not chocolate. I don't know what that is, but that's not chocolate. So Rahal added that to the Cuisinart, mixes the Cuisinart, takes his blob, puts the blob in a pan, cuts it up later, puts it in Ziploc bags. He takes it to CrossFit, right? He takes it to the people and he passes it out, and he's like, what do you guys think of this? Do you like this? Is it too much? Is it too salty? What other flavors would you like? He keeps asking questions. He's curious. He's noticed a glitch in the matrix. He's had a that's interesting moment, and he's following up on it. He's doing those two steps. And Rahal goes and he refines it, and he starts selling it online. And he realizes that they don't have any money for marketing. Every dollar that they earn goes back into making more product. And so Rahal and his founder, early employee, Sam McBride, they have to figure out like another way to do marketing. They have to be curious and find a better way. They have to find an inexpensive way to do it. So they discover this app called Instagram. And there are these people on Instagram called influencers, right? And so they start DMing influencers. And Sam McBride jokes that he would lay in bed, he's just in bed, DMing Instagram influencers who are working out. And if you've ever been on Instagram, you'll notice that in the workout section, those people don't wear a lot of clothes. So he's laying there and he's like, he's got his wife next to him in bed, and he's like, honey, I just have to do this for work, right? So they found this inexpensive marketing plan, DMs to Instagram influencers, right? They found this bar that they've refined, and they keep growing. They keep making more. They keep making more. They get to the point where they have outgrown the supply of dates in the United States. They can't get any more dates out of the United States. They say in their interview that they didn't realize dates were a seasonal product. They thought that, like, you know how you go to the supermarket and like, oh yeah, dates are there year round. No, when you're making things at this kind of a scale, they have a growing season. So they find dates overseas, and eventually Rahal and McBride and another co-founder, they sell their company to Kellogg's. And that's how RX Bar was sold to Kellogg's for $600 million. All because he was curious. He's like, I just finished my CrossFit workout. CrossFit is selling some stuff. They're not selling anything that's paleo approved. So we have to move with technology, which isn't too hard. We can all grow with technology because we've all grown with these, right? We have to be curious about things, We also have to be adaptable. We have to change with the circumstances. This is a very trendy term. A lot of people call this pivoting, but you can't be so fixated on your vision that you just decide to go after your vision and not after other things. There has to be a little wiggle room in how you get to your destination, right? And my favorite story of this is Ron Shaich. Ron Shaich was he was a cookie store franchisee. So he would go from parent cookie store, and he would go help franchisees set up other cookie stores. And if the parent company was going to own one, he would go and he would get it up and running, right? So one day Ron is like, he has a curious moment. He says, why are we always putting these in malls? Like, malls have good foot traffic, but you know what else has good foot traffic? Downtown. We could just be downtown doing this. And the parent company was like, no, we're not doing that. Our wheelhouse is malls. We go to malls. You know, you get the pretzel place, you get the cookie place. That's where we go. We're in malls. And so Ron Shaich is like, you know what? I would like to try one downtown. And they're like, fine, you can try one downtown. So he goes and he sets up a location downtown. And just like Ray Hall, he's out on the street asking people, what do you think about this? Do you like this? At one point, he did did anyone see the Friends episode where Phoebe has made the cookies and Monica is like, we need to recreate these cookies? And they're like, what's the recipe? What's the recipe? Well, the punchline is that the cookie recipe that was supposedly a family secret was the Nestle Toll House recipe that was on the back of the bag the whole time. So that's what Ron Shaich does too, actually. He takes the Toll House recipe, he goes out and he's like, what do you guys like about this? What do you not like about this? He gets feedback from customers, and he quickly realizes that to have the rent on a food space downtown is really expensive, and selling cookies does not cut it. You cannot sell cookies from 10 to 2 each day and make enough to pay the rent. So what does he do? He's like, I'm going to sell something in the morning. I'm going to have something else. What do people like to buy in the morning? We're going to do baked goods. We're going to do baked goods in the morning. We're going to do cookies in the afternoon. And that's how we're going to run this business. So he tries that, and he gets a license to sell baked goods in the morning. And he notices something funny, is that people are coming in, and they're buying his baked goods because they're really frickin' good, but they're asking him to slice them. And he's like, why are they asking me to slice these? So he asked the customer one day, and he's like, why am I slicing these for you? And the customer says, this is the best bread for sandwiches. And that's the secret. Shaich says in one interview that you didn't have to be a Harvard MBA to realize that the value proposition was in sandwiches. So he started with a downtown cookie place. Now he's moved to baked goods. Now he realizes sandwiches is the way to go. We've got one more pivot coming down the line, and that is that he can't be in downtown because downtown is too dang expensive. The rents are too high. He needs to be in the suburbs. He needs to have a larger space. In fact, his space is going to be so large that you can linger. You can hang out. If you want to have a meeting in this space as you enjoy your sandwiches and your coffee and your tea and your baked goods, that's cool. We've got room for everybody. So through all these twists and turns, Ron Shaich has started Panera. And that's how Panera got its start. And it wasn't because he wanted to set out and start a suburban coffee house that people could have book club meetings at, right? He wanted something else, and he followed the twists and turns. He found a way to sustainably profit while also serving customers. How much time do I have left? How much? Plenty? Okay. So another tool that is going to go in our toolbox is something called the passion myth, all right? And I think having this talk in Pittsburgh is really interesting because a lot of times passion is like a vein of coal. Like, it's in there. Are you digging? Have you found it? Have you discovered it? I think all of that is a lie. I think passion being internal to you, like a seam of coal, you just need enough self-discovery to find. I think that all that is baloney. I think the only thing that finds passion is hard work. And passion and hard work is actually a feedback system, where once you work hard at something, you become passionate about it. And once you become passionate about it, guess what's next? you're willing to work hard at it. And if you're willing to work, and that cycle just keeps going. And there's a really great litmus test for this. There's a really helpful way to find what you're willing to work hard at as you develop a career. And that's to ask, am I doing this on a Sunday morning? Okay, because whatever you're willing to do on a Sunday morning, you are willing to work hard at. And if you're willing to work hard at it, it feeds into the passion cycle. Okay? And this isn't just Sunday morning. Like Joe talked about earlier, this does not mean waking up early on Sunday. This means getting your affairs in order on Saturday, right? Because if you're a parent like I am, if you've got stakeholders in your life that depend on you, that enjoy spending time with you, that means spending time and doing things with those people, right? So you can't say, you know what, on Saturday I'm going to do whatever I want, and on Sunday I'm going to work on my passion project. That's not how it works, right? You are going to spend all of your time on Saturday with your family because you enjoy that, and those people are stakeholders in your lives, so that you can get up early on Sunday. That also means, like, guess what? Netflixing till midnight on a Saturday night, that's done. Going out late with friends on a Saturday night, that's done, because everything is in service to what you're doing on Sunday morning. And that's why I wanted to start off in noting, like, not everyone has to be an entrepreneur. Like, if you want to Netflix on Saturday and sleep in on Sunday, that means that you won't have a side gig or a hustle or a blog or a side business. Like, that's fine. Like, sometimes we tell these stories about Ron Shaich or Peter Rahal and all of these different companies, and like, that's really aspiring, and it's great that people strive for that, but that doesn't have to be for everybody, right? One investor says that if you're not willing to read a company's 10Ks and eschew the latest movie in the movie theaters, that's a good sign that you don't need to be an investor. That's okay. You're just not going to do the level of research that's required for that kind of situation. Another one named Josh Wolf says that he likes to read academic journals on Sunday mornings, right? And that's like the opposite of the comics. You got the comics on one end and you got academic journals on the other, but he likes to do that because he knows that his competition is not doing that. The people that he's competing with aren't doing that hard work. And for Josh Wolf, it's not work because it's something that he enjoys. It's something that feeds back into the system. So I think those are 4 helpful tools for our toolbox, where even if you're a teenager and you have a set of limited life skills, your other life skills will grow. If you're adaptable with technology, if you're willing to change with the times, that's a good tool to have in your toolbox. If you're curious and you're willing to take the next step with your curiosity, that's a good tool to have in your toolbox. If you're adaptable, like the founder of Panera was, and you say, you know what, eventually I want to get to there, I want to get to that area, I want to do that general thing. That's another tool that you can have in your toolbox. And you can also get rid of the passion tool. Take the passion tool that's in your toolbox and throw it out. You do not need that. That tool is like a bad hammer. It's going to break. It's not going to function properly. Instead, the tool that you want to put in your toolbox is hard work. And understand that if you work hard, everything else will come. It may not be exactly what you want, but you will go in the general direction that you need. Voltaire is quoted as expressing that work keeps away 3 things of life. It keeps away boredom, it keeps away vice, and it keeps away need. And so work is more than a job. Work provides our friendships. Work provides our community. It provides our salary. It lets us do different things. Okay? And we need tools to do those things because everything we do is in service of an outcome. And the tools we have in our toolbox will change over time. In the same way that traveling has changed over time, so is the way that we do our jobs. And we should be okay with that it's not static. I think one of the great tools that we can have in our toolbox is a willingness to be open and learn from others and come to things like the Going Deep Summit. Thank you guys very much. Thanks for watching. Let me know your favorite part in the comments.